Okay, back with you, Kenny. It's one of my favorite topics is influencers, and sometimes they come in a second, sometimes they come in a lifetime. And I share a lot of times when I speak about one of my first influencers was my grandfather. My grandmother, my mom, my aunt, they came from Kyiv to Canada way back when my mom was young. But he used to take me for walks in the park in Montreal when I was like 5 or 6. And one day I asked him, I called him Zeta, how do you know all these people you talk to? Because I think that's where I got my talking from. How do you know that? And he said, well, one day I saw that guy over there and he walked by and I smiled at him and he smiled at me and he came over. And then before we knew it, we were laughing and talking. And someone else came over and said, what do you guys look like you're having fun or something? And smiled at us. And I saw all of them were influenced by that kindness of a smile that I'm thinking of as a 5-year-old, how easy it is to meet that way. Like you were talking about booking holdings, meeting people. Then as growing up, I even took it more seriously, how much of an influence you make, even just with a smile. Can you share with us? I know there's plenty, maybe 2 or 3 people that have been influential in your life.
Yeah, and I'll try to, just I've taken I'm like a sponge, and I've taken so many pieces from people here. It's once I've like centered on my values, then I know what to take and what to discard, and so
Right.
I'm like a collection now of those. And so, like you mentioned, like one of the instrumental people for me was my great grandmother, Rebecca Holiday. She is the one that grew up in rural South Carolina, but just instilled to me the need to learn and the results of hard work. Like she was just so disciplined. So those things for me is like I still, we're at the root of who I am. I would have to say James Mays, who's my father-in-law. He's passed away, but he really loved to read. He was a teacher, and so he's the one that really inspired me to start buying books. And so he loved to read there. And some of the other folks that are, I haven't met. It's like 3 people that really come to me that I have not met, but
Yeah.
I've studied them. And this is what I would definitely invite people to study them as well. Jim Rohn is one of them. Like he was like a business philosopher. I mean, just the way he looked at life and infused values and business together. I mean, that to me showed me that those two can go together. So I've like studied him religiously on and just to learn a lot how he thought and why he thought. Another was Miles Monroe. So he was a pastor and he's passed away, but his videos are and teachings are out there. He really broke down the Bible to be as a manual for you to run your life. And how, if you looked at, if it was a manufacturer that wrote a manuscript on how to run your life, this is it. And so he would talk about it from that perspective and just really gave me insight that I never saw before. And the other one is King Solomon. He was the wisest person to ever live. I mean, one of the wealthiest on earth. I figure that's a person you should study if they're wise and wealthy, and you're trying to figure those things out. That is a person you should study. So I've really leaned into the Proverbs that he wrote and really dissected those and use a ton of that in how I live my everyday life. So those are some of the people that have had a grand influence on me and how I think, and I've downloaded a lot of gems from them.
That's beautiful. And thanks for sharing that. It reminds me always that we're influencers, whether we know it or not, a lot of times too. Like you talk about people you've never met and they will never know how much they influenced you, but they have. And we meet people all the time and we may not know that we're influencing them. So it's our choice to either be positive or negative because it's going to happen one way or another. Um, and why not go the positive route, right?
Right. Yeah. And you can always learn something. I mean, I really love talking to our seniors because they
Right.
have learned things with the element of time. And so they have seen how things work naturally because they've been there and they've seen that. So that is another pool of resource that may not get tapped as much as it should is our seniors in our community.
Well, check out check out championship sports teams. There's a reason they have veterans and young players on the team, both, is because of that. So if you want to win a championship, both can learn from each other and play together and win. So thanks, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Perfect. No, thank you.